Huge home runs by Brandon Nimmo and Francisco Alvarez helped the Mets complete their biggest comeback of the season, and suddenly they're right back in the driver's seat in the wild card race.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. It's the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find some of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the editor-in-chief. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Now on Monday, after the Mets lost 2 straight games to the Nationals, the fan base was ready to give up. I wouldn't say everybody, but there is definitely a loud minority, or maybe even it's half of the fan base, that saw those 2 games against the Nationals and thought, you know what, it's over. And if you go back and you listen to my show on Monday morning, I was not pumping all the sunshine and rainbows into this team like I typically try to as someone that is admittedly an optimist. But it was hard to be optimistic. What I told you, though, at the time is I said, you know what? There's still 6 games left in this season, and we have no idea what's going to happen. We don't know if the Pirates can actually pull off what felt like the unthinkable, beating the Reds if the Reds swept the Cubs in a 4-game series and got to stay home for this series against a bottom-dwelling team in the Pirates. We thought, oh yeah, for sure, the Reds are going to sweep the Pirates. But as I said on that show, you really never know what's going to happen, and guess what? We'll talk about it more in the next segment, but the Reds lost. And you thought, how are the Mets going to go into Chicago against an 88-win Cubs team who's now due to win a game after dropping their last 4, which I said. I talked about how long the odds were, but you never know what's going to happen. And when David Peterson lays an egg and is getting pulled out of the game after giving up 5 runs and only getting 4 outs, it seemed like the Mets were going to lose another game. It felt like they were going to once again lose ground in the wild card race, even when the Reds were losing. You still had the Diamondbacks to play. So maybe there would have been 2 teams ahead of the New York Mets via tiebreaker. But as I talked about on that show on Monday, we are going to miss baseball in a couple of weeks when this season's over, however it ends. And so as a fan that loves this team and loves this game, watch and see what happens, because this might be the last baseball we get for a while. And even if the Mets fall off from here, I enjoyed my Tuesday night watching Brandon Nimmo hit a huge home run to tie the game, watching Francisco Alvarez hit an even bigger home run to put the Mets up late, and seeing Edwin Diaz pitch like the best closer in baseball, strike out 5 of the final 6 batters, pitch 2 perfect innings for the 6-out save as the Mets were able to beat the Cubs and regain their fate. Because now, once again, the Mets are up in this wild card race. Their magic number is 5. There's 5 games left to play. If they win them all, they're in. Doesn't matter what anybody else does. So yeah, this team is frustrating. David Peterson taking the 1-run lead that he got because Francisco Lindor got the Mets off on a good note, hits a leadoff homer on the second pitch of the ball game, his 29th of the season. Lindor now 1 home run away from another 30-30 season. It'd be his 2nd in 3 years. Should be 3 years in a row, but a back injury last year kept him 1 stolen base shy of a 30-30 season. But another great year for Lindor. He tries to get the team fired up. Peterson goes out there, gives up 2 runs in the bottom of the first. Gave up a leadoff single. Nico Horner stole second base, picked up a strikeout, got a ground out. You thought, okay, he's going to get out of this. Issues a walk. Walks always come back to bite you. And then also Juan Soto should have caught a fly ball in the warning track off the bat of Carlos Santana. It was well struck, so it's not like David Peterson's completely absolved, but he could have been bailed out if Soto makes a nice play. He doesn't, and it's 2-1 Cubs. And then in the second inning, after the Mets went down in order on the top of the second, the Cubs just absolutely knocked Peterson out of the game. He issues a leadoff walk. Again, walks kill you. Gives up a base hit. Pete Crow Armstrong lays down a sacrifice bunt. Peterson then gives up a base hit that scores 1 run, a double that scores 2, and he's yanked because you can't run the risk of him giving up anything else. Now, credit to the Mets bullpen for keeping them in that game. They had to cover all but 4 outs of this game. Huascar Brazoban was big, came in, stranded a runner in scoring position, got through that second inning, then a 1-2-3 third, gave up an unearned run in the 4th inning as Jeff McNeil made back-to-back bad throws. Brazoban got what could have been a double play ball that would have ended that inning. McNeil airmailed the throw to first, and then he makes a really good sliding stop, but could not complete the play. Makes a throwing error there. Pete Alonso, I still think probably could have and maybe should have caught that ball. Regardless, unearned run made it 6-1 Cubs. But the Mets were able to battle back, and what did they need to have happen to get into the game? They needed a couple breaks. The first one, Cade Horton was cruising, the likely rookie of the year in the National League, through 3 innings, less than 30 pitches, only gave up the run on the homer by Lindor, but he left with back tightness out of an abundance of caution, as the Cubs would say after the game. So the Mets got to face the Cubs bullpen early. And the other break they got was after Starling Marte got a leadoff single in the 5th, Jeff McNeil popped out. Francisco Alvarez hit a ground ball to Dansby Swanson, sort of an in-between hop, but Swanson does make an error, a rare error for one of the better defensive shortstops in baseball. That puts 2 runners in scoring position for Francisco Lindor. Lindor hits a hard ground ball to the right side that scores 1 and moves the runner over to 3rd. Juan Soto draws a walk. Pete Alonso hammers one off the wall that scores a run. Ends up being a single because he hit it so hard. And then Brandon Nimmo comes up big. The Cubs went to grab a lefty to face him. The second time we saw this in recent memory here, as there was another team. Can't remember exactly who it was. Maybe it was the Rangers. But regardless, where they put in a lefty to face Nimmo, and Nimmo makes them pay. It was actually Tyler Rogers' brother, his twin brother, Taylor, who threw a sweeper to Nimmo that he measured. Second pitch, another sweeper, and he did not miss it. Ripped it deep into right field, ends up going to the seats. A 3-run homer that makes it a brand new game. 25th homer of the season for Nimmo. You can look at his stats and say, oh, is it a down year? Well, he's just set a career high for home runs, and he also set a career high for RBIs with that swing. 91 RBIs, 25 homers. Off chance he gets to 100 this year, probably not, but still, to have back-to-back seasons with 90 home runs and now his first ever 25 home run campaign, pretty solid year for Nimmo despite all the streakiness. Now, the bullpen beyond Brazoban, you had Ryan Stanek pitch a scoreless 5th. You had the Mets grab a lead in the 6th inning. Jeff McNeil, a 2-out double. Francisco Alvarez drew a walk. Lindor comes through again with an RBI single. Gregory Soto gets the first 2 outs of the 6th after giving up a single. Carlos Mendoza goes to Tyler Rogers. Rogers issues a walk, then gives up a base hit that scores the tying run before finally getting out of the inning. Bottom of the 7th inning, he gets the first 2 batters out, but then he gives up a bloop single, and he issues a walk before Brooks Raley comes on to face Pete Crow Armstrong. He gets a massive strikeout to keep the game tied. Top of the 8th, Brett Beatty, leadoff single. Acuna came in to pinch run. Eventually stole second base, but only after Starling Marte popped out on a bunt attempt, and Jeff McNeil lined out. Really good play by Pete Crow Armstrong there, coming in on the low liner off the bat of McNeil. Alvarez comes up, has a great at-bat, gets himself into a 3-1 hitter's count, gets a fastball, does not miss it, crushes it to deep left center field for the go-ahead homer. And then again, Edwin Diaz was nails at the end of that game, picking up his 27th save with 5 strikeouts in 2 perfect innings pitched. And the Mets able to pull off a massive win. First time this season they have come back from trailing by 5 runs to win. And also the first time the Cubs have given up a 5-run lead. So a huge, huge victory for this Mets team. The question now, though, can they sustain it? They control their fate in the wild card race, but that does not mean that it's easy. It's a 5-game. There's 5 games left with a magic number of 5, which means at this point, you still got to win every single game you're playing. But the Mets, at least for now, are sitting in a much better spot than they were 24 hours ago. I want to give you an update on the race here in just a minute. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra and Cialis, and maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula so you can be ready and go the distance. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. The process is simple. Connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment ships directly right to your door. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to Rugiet.com. That's RUGIET.com. And use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 50% off your first order. That's Rugiet.com. Promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Rugiet, RUGIET.com. Promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure to use our code so they know that we sent you. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute that you want to head to the ballpark and check out a game with your friends or family? Maybe you're in the Chicago area. You could check out Mets vs. Cubs, or you're like me in South Florida and you're looking forward to watching the Mets finish off their season in Miami against the Marlins. Game Time can get you into the ballpark with the best possible deals. Makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying your tickets. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming MLB game like, again, Mets vs. Cubs or Mets vs. Marlins. Seats you can view from the app, so know exactly what to expect when you arrive, and you can buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps. You're all set. Take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 15,000 subscribers. We're within 500 from getting there. Really do appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. Also, make sure you check out the Locked On Mets postcast. Chris Schubert does a great job with the show. Happens right after the final out of each Mets game. So make sure you're checking that out on the channel as well. Now, before we talk about the bad, which is the fact that the Mets literally cannot trust any of their veteran starting pitchers anymore, they are in the driver's seat. The Reds had Brady Singer on the mound on Tuesday night. Singer has been great lately. Tonight against the Pirates, he had a 1 bad inning. Gave up a 1-out double, then a base hit that scored the first run for the Pirates. Old friend Alex Canario ripped a double that scored another run. Singer picked up a strikeout to get 1 out away from escaping the jam, but then he served up a 2-run homer to O'Neal Cruz, putting the Pirates up 4-0. Now, Ellie De La Cruz got the Reds right back in the game in the next half inning. You had Spencer Steer draw a leadoff walk. Ellie cashed him in with a 2-run homer. But that's all the Reds would get throughout the rest of the game, and the Pirates won 4-2. Johan Oviedo went 4 2/3, allowed 2 runs, and the Pirates bullpen came on strong from there. Got the final 13 outs without issuing a single run. The Mets now have a 1-game lead over the Reds with 5 left to play. The Diamondbacks beat the Dodgers in walk-off fashion, so they now move even with the Reds and a game back of the Mets. Both of those teams will hold the tiebreaker over the Mets. So this really does come down to the very end here where, yes, the Mets right now are in the driver's seat, but if they lose tonight and the Reds and or Diamondbacks win, they're right back out of it. And then again, they'll have to hope that one of those teams loses down the stretch here. So when you get to this point of a playoff race, you just got to win. You can't count on the other teams to lose. Granted, Paul Skeens is on the mound tonight against Hunter Green. Hunter Green's been unbelievable lately, but this is Paul Skeens' last chance to put a bow on pretty much what's guaranteed to be a Cy Young campaign. But you know he's going to want to end on a strong note, especially when he draws a matchup like Hunter Green in a game that really means something to the Reds. So it's going to be really fun to watch that game. I'm excited to watch that at the same time as I'm watching the Mets game tonight because that's just an unbelievable matchup. And if Paul Skeens can deliver a victory to the Pirates, and let's just say the Diamondbacks lose to the Dodgers and Jonah Tong leads the Mets to a win, all of a sudden you're sitting with a match number 3 with 4 left to play. And you might actually have a little bit of wiggle room. So big for the Mets to just win games at this point. And it's not going to be easy. I don't want to make it seem like, oh, the Mets won 1 game, it's all fixed. David Peterson looked awful. Absolutely awful. I mean, there's no way around that side of this. David Peterson was brutal. And if you get to a game 162, who was lined up to start it? David Peterson. We'll talk about that in the next segment. What do you do in that situation? Who knows? The Chicago Cubs are still a good baseball team that has stuff to play for. It might seem like they have nothing because they clinched a playoff berth and they're not going to win their division. But they want to host that wild card round. They have not had a playoff game at Wrigley Field since 2018. You know they want to play at least one. Well, if they host, they want to play at least two. And so it's important that they win these games. They only have a game and a half lead over the Padres, and the tiebreaker is likely going to go to San Diego. They split their season series, but the Padres have a better record against their division right now than the Cubs do. And it's, I think, a 2-game difference right now. You have the Padres that once they're 29-20 against their division. The Cardinals are 27-22. If you have a split series on the season series, that's the second tiebreaker, who played better against their division. So if the Padres, when they're going up against the Diamondbacks to close out their season here, if they are able to win a game, they would at least clinch, being tied on the tiebreaker. I don't even know the third tiebreaker if both those teams have an identical record against their division. But the point is, there's a very good chance that the Padres end up with that tiebreaker. So the Cubs got to win some games here. So it's not like they're going to just roll over and let the Mets win these next two, especially with their best two remaining starting pitchers lined up, with Matthew Boyd and Shota Imanaga going. They want these games. The Marlins are not going to be easy either. We already know just the way that Mets fans are going to feel the Marlins as a spoiler late in the season based on past history. But this isn't your typical spoiler. This is a team that's playing good baseball. They got blanked by Christopher Sanchez for 7 innings and then rallied back in Philly tonight. They stormed back from down 3-0 against the Phillies bullpen, took it to extras, and ended up winning in the 11th inning. Okay, this is the same ballpark the Mets went to, whatever that was, 2 weeks ago, and got swept in the 4-game series. So it really is a Marlins team that's scary right now. They've won 11 of their last 12. They went 1-7 to start off September, and since then they're 11-1. They're 3 games under 500, and they still have a chance to have a winning season if they win out. So it's not going to be easy for the New York Mets to pull this thing off. Just because they won 1 game does not mean they're automatically the favorites again. They're definitely getting in. But to see them come from behind and win a game like that, it just reminds you, not to borrow the line from Carlos Mendoza that we've heard ad nauseum this year, and a lot of times it's gotten frustrating, but he's not wrong. There is a lot of talent on this roster. And you see that potential when you watch Brandon Nimmo hit that home run, Francisco Alvarez hit his homer, Lindor have a huge game, Edwin Diaz just absolutely nails at the end of a baseball game. I don't know who's going to get the first 3 outs of any of these games that are not started by Nolan McLean. I really don't know where the Mets are going to turn their rotation, but if things go well, I know who's going to get the final 3 outs of a big playoff game, and that's Edwin Diaz. So this was a great win for the Mets. And now they got to build off of it. How can they when they have a completely taxed bullpen? I want to talk about that and what the strategy would be when Peterson's turn comes up again. We're going to go through all of that to close out the show in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season's here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, whether it's player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And again, if you win, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. If you're an everydayer that always tunes into the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. It's our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks on the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime, take part in our Locked On Mets sign photo giveaways, and get a line graphic sent to your phone each day so you know it's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description and go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Now, there's no defending David Peterson anymore. It has been a brutal month, a 9.72 ERA. His ERA is over 6 in August. He's been bad. And the last time that I talked about David Peterson after a clunker, I did dive through all the numbers and all the stats, and through all the bad outings, there had been some good ones weaved in. There was some outings where, I think of the one against the Cardinals where he gave up 4 runs but went 6 innings and gave up some home runs in that game where if a couple pitches go a couple different ways, it actually would have been a decent start. Or the way that he was able to go up against the Phillies and strike out a bunch of batters recently. And again, game got away from him, but it wasn't the worst of all starts. This was a brutal outing for David Peterson. And so now you think about a game 162 if it matters, or a playoff game. How do you hand the ball back to David Peterson? I really don't know. So you look at what's ahead for the Mets in these final 5 games. You got Jonah Tong going today. You got Nolan McLean going tomorrow. That's McLean on 4 days rest, which sets him up to pitch either game 1 of the wild card round on 4 days rest or game 2 on 5 days rest. And if Jonah Tong pitches a good game, I wouldn't be surprised if they go with the kids completely. Jonah Tong, game 1 on 5 days rest. Nolan McLean, game 2. Brandon Sproat, game 3. Because what veterans are you trusting? At this point, it's probably Clay Holmes. I don't know how you could trust either of the lefties, Sean Manaea or David Peterson. And when it comes to a game 162 that matters, I don't know what the Mets do because your only options would be Jonah Tong on 4 days rest, right? Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Now you can't even do that because that'd be 3 days rest. So literally your only options would be David Peterson, Kodai Senga, who threw 45 pitches of a live BP on Tuesday. So is he ready to go right back in and start an MLB game? He might be your best option because it's either Kodai Senga, David Peterson, or you split up that piggyback of Holmes and Manaea, and you just start Clay Holmes on Saturday to try to win that game and save Sean Manaea to try to win on Sunday. It's really just a tough spot to be in, or you go with the straight bullpen game. So for this Mets team right now, I think there's a real chance that they are going to roll with Tong, McLean, and Sproat if they were able to get to a wild card round, but you first have to get there. And it would be great if they could lock it up before that final game, so it doesn't matter. So you can start David Peterson just to try to get him right before the playoffs without any real inclination of having him pitch at all in that wild card round. You could basically burn him, get through that final game, and then see if he can be a part of the NLDS roster. It's wild how quickly things can change, but that's where we're at with Peterson after these last 2 starts. Now today, how are the Mets going to get through? Because the bullpen had to cover, what was it again? 23 of the 27 outs against the Cubs on Tuesday night. So who's left to give you innings? What I would say here, if you go through it, Huascar Brazoban definitely not going to be in it. He threw over 30 pitches, but I don't think you want to option him to get a fresh arm because then you're burning him. If you send Brazoban down, unless there's an injury, he's done for the season. You can't call him back up. Anytime you send a guy down, they have to spend 15 days on a minor league assignment. That's also why Justin Hageman is not available as a fresh arm. The guy that I think is going to be added to this roster again is Brandon Waddell. I imagine he replaces Dickie Lovelady. So you have Waddell to either pitch in a lopsided game where the Mets are winning and cover some innings, or on the other side, if Jonah Tong has a bad start, Waddell can come in and try to soak up some innings in the middle of that game. But ideally, you get 5 or 6 from Jonah Tong. If you have a narrow lead, you got Gregory Soto who threw 11 pitches. You got Brooks Raley who threw, I think it was 5 or 6. Those 2 guys would stand to pitch again on a back-to-back. Then you have Ryan Stanek who threw 25 pitches. Would they maybe go back to him? Would they go back to Edwin Diaz who threw 27 pitches? I don't know how you could, again, go back to Brazoban. And I don't think you can go to Tyler Rogers, who also threw over 30 pitches. So I really think this game is going to come down to Tong. Hopefully you're able to, with a big lead, have Waddell soak up some innings. If not, you got Soto, you got Raley, and you got Ryan Helsley. And you might be going into the day saying to Helsley, look, Edwin's not going to go today. You're our closer for this game. And that's going to be really scary and dicey. But also Ryan Helsley has a lot of experience pitching in that ballpark against that team. And I would venture to guess less success pitching in that ballpark against that team. So it might be on Helsley today to finish off a Mets win, and that's going to have all of us on the edge of our seats. Last thing to note, Tyrone Taylor should likely be activated today. The Mets had him go through a bunch of workouts on Tuesday to make sure he was good to go with a right-handed starting pitcher on the mound. The Mets decided instead to go with Brandon Nimmo in center field, Starling Marte in left, Vientos at DH, Beatty at second base. Beatty at third base, McNeil at second base. So that could be a lineup we see moving forward, but they also are not going to want to run Marte and Nimmo into the ground either. And with a lefty on the mound, my guess is Tyrone Taylor is going to start. I imagine Nimmo's right back in left field. Marte likely DHs, and then you probably bench one of McNeil or Beatty with Vientos at third. That's how I think they'll do it. And as long as they're not going to give Cedric Mullins any starts this week or Jose Siri, fine by me. The Mets have to find their motivation to be able to pull off a strong finish here and get themselves in. Because once you're in, again, you really don't know what can happen. That's going to be all. Actually, one last thing. The Binghamton Rumble Ponies have survived. They lost game one of their championship series on Sunday. They won tonight. Will Watson started the game, went 2 innings, gave up a run. Felipe de la Cruz pitched 4 innings in the middle there, allowed just a run. Ryan Lambert came on with the Ponies up 5-2 in the 7th. He ends up giving up a pair. Ben Simon came in and finished things off, got the final 6 outs to cap off the win. Big game from Jacob Reimer, who went 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs. So now they have one last game to play tonight. If they win that, they will win the championship in the, the Eastern League? I believe it's the Eastern League because I think AAA is the International League. So we'll call it the Eastern League. Hopefully they can pull that off because that would give the Mets 2 affiliates that won championships this year. So just one other thing to monitor today. Anyway, that's going to be all for this edition of Locked On Mets. Really do appreciate all of you who tuned into the show. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets.